So for our viewers, would you please state your name and tell us a little bit about you, that you're an author, what you've written, and how you were raised, where you're from.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my name is James Schwartz, and I'm from southwestern Michigan. I was born and raised in the Amish community. Um,
And it was what type of Amish? Because our viewers aren't aware of the differences within the Amish. From the outside, it's all just one big pot of everybody's the same, homogenous. Whereas
mhm.
really, there's a lot of differences within the Amish. And you were raised as Swiss Amish. Is that what you?
Well, yes. It would have been like my father came from the Swiss tradition. Um, but I would say we were middle of the road conservative. We were old order Amish. It would be considered old order. Um, but in terms of the old order, we were middle of the road conservative. I mean, not super conservative, but not super liberal neither. So yeah.
And and
Mhm.
in terms of language, so many viewers aren't aware that we don't speak English as our first language. Like English is our second language, and within the Amish, there are different variations of the Amish language that we speak. And yours, if you speak your version of Amish, I won't understand it, and vice versa. I think. Um, is that correct?
A cleave.
See, I don't even know what that means. So what was that word?
No, no, in the Swiss dialect, that would mean a little bit.
Yeah,
But yeah, Pennsylvania Dutch, it definitely has a lot of variation,
yeah.
and I find myself losing a lot of it because I don't speak it anymore.
Hmm.
Right, right.
Hmm. Hmm. So, how long, like, how old were you when you decided that you were going to leave the Amish church, and what prompted that?
Well, because I was gay, um, am gay, um, present tense, um, and I had a library card. And I think during one of our previous talks, we had discussed not having supervision at the library and reading a lot of secular material and things I probably wasn't supposed to, but that broadened my eyes to the wider world and what was to come.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So here's something I want to clarify, point out to our viewers, is that um, the Amish send their children to one-room schoolhouses. Most of the Amish, the majority of them, and it started back in 1972 in the Wisconsin versus Yoder Supreme Court case, where up until that point, the Amish had sent their children to public school systems just like everybody else. And however, at around 1972, the Amish, through winning the Supreme Court case, were allowed to take their kids out of the public school system and put them into Amish parochial schools, which basically means that now you have one-room schoolhouses with only Amish children in attendance and Amish teachers who themselves haven't gone beyond the 8th grade teaching them. Now, I grew up that way, going to these one-room Amish only schools. And I thought every Amish person in Amish universe went to one-room Amish only schoolhouses until I spoke to you, which was a
Right,
week
right.
ago, where I was like, what? You went to public school? Like you had a public school curriculum? So can you explain how that worked? Like, was it still a one-room schoolhouse, or did you get bussed into like the local town or city, or how what was the setting?
Oh, no, me and my Amish classmates were all bussed in to the local community school, um, kindergarten through 8th grade, and it's half Amish, half non-Amish. Excuse me. And back then we didn't have the technology that we do now. But from what I understand now, it's still half and half. But so the teachers, the educators use separate lesson plans because some Amish can maybe use the computer for limited things and others maybe can't at all.
Okay. So
Right.
they're separate. So you're bused into the local, public school system, local
Right.
town, and the student population is half Amish, half non-Amish, by virtue of basically being out in the rural community. And this was in Indiana, right? Northern Indiana,
No,
or
Southern Michigan.
Southern
Yeah.
Michigan. Southern Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by
Yeah, we didn't even have computer classes back then. This would have been in the 80s.
oh, okay.
Yeah. But I do remember like occasionally we had like a video presentation or the occasional movie like the movie White Fang comes to mind. I remember we watched that, and I think some of the Amish could watch it, and if you couldn't, like it came down to permission slips and all that. So yeah.
Oh, like permission slips from the individual parents, whether or not their children were
Right.
allowed to watch videos in class.
Right.
Okay.
So and then when that happened, and the kids that couldn't, they just sat out in the hall and read a book or something.
Okay. So because of this exposure to the public school system, you had a library card. And
Right.
how did you actually get to the library, access to that? So you're young, you're a minor, and you don't have. I mean, you probably weren't allowed to drive a horse and buggy by yourself into town to the library. I mean, how did you get access to?
Oh no, I had wheels. It was a bicycle up until I was like, in, I think even my early 20s until I got my driver's license.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so were you allowed in your Amish community to have bicycles, or did you have a bicycle on the slide, the download?
No, bicycles were allowed. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So not Schwartz and Truber conservative.
Well, there are actually also, just for our viewers, so within the range of old order Amish, there's what's considered like really conservative, where people like the community members aren't allowed to have indoor bathrooms and phones and bicycles, and then it ranges all the way up to where it's considered a little bit more what we consider modern or liberal, which is you're allowed to have bikes and you're allowed to have indoor bathrooms. That's pretty much roughly the range. And the Schwartz and Truber Amish are even more strict than
Right.
like really, really strict. Like and they're sort of separate from the rest of the old order Amish. Like there's all these distinctions, different groups. That's hard to get a handle on until you study it a little bit. And so,
That is true.
yeah. So, were you the youngest or one of the youngest? And
yes, I was the baby of the family. Yes.
And your mother. Talk a little bit about your relationship with your mother and your father, like how you were raised.
Well, I was a mama's boy growing up. I was kind of afraid of my father when I was younger. He was very stern, not all that affectionate, and that changed somewhat as my mom died when I was 9 of breast cancer. And so that took him a few years to get over. It took us both a long time to actually get over that. I mean, it was a huge loss. And mom was sort of the glue of the family. She held the family together. And so then kind of, once she passed away, the family just sort of scattered to the four winds, and or not a real close family environment or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. And so was your mom aware that you were gay? So you were 9 when she passed.
No, she wouldn't have been aware. had she been like, had she not passed away, I think she would have been okay with it. I mean, Dad was to a certain extent, as that when I was older and was out, he still wanted me at the farm to help take care of him.
Okay,
But
so just to clarify, so when you say when you were out, you mean you had left the church or decided already that you weren't going to be
well,
part of the church?
no, like out of the closet.
Oh, when you were out of the, okay, yeah.
Right, right. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so I want to get to how you got into writing a little bit later, but first I want to um, sort of get at, like, how old were you when you came out, officially came out, like to your dad, to the Amish community members, or like to your family, immediate family?
Right.
Like, how did that come about? How old were you and how did it happen?
Yeah, well, it would have, I would have been probably in my late teens, I would say maybe 20, and everyone would have known because, you tell your immediate family and then everyone knows, so, and that was fine by me because it just saved me the trouble of telling everyone individually. But yeah, because coming out, it's not really something that you do one time. It's something that you do all the time, every day even, depending on your social interactions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My family is not all that accepting about it. A few are, but a few really are not,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. But I don't care. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, 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 good. So how old were you when you realized, like, oh, I'm gay, I'm not straight? And how did you even learn about the concept of being gay? Because
Right, that was a huge thing for a long time because I didn't know. And just there was no word. No one actually sat me down and said you're gay. This is what your life is going to be like, or whatever. Because sex in general for so many Amish kids, it's like a huge mystery. You're never clued in on anything. You sort of have to piece things together here and there, or whatever you can find from fucking National Geographic magazine. But yeah, so, and it probably was through books and things. I mean, obviously you're aware you have same-sex desires, but that came later on, once puberty's like burning through you. But yeah, I remember I had actually went home with an Amish classmate, um, and we had a one night stand, and
oh,
his
really? How old were you? What
and
grade were you in?
I would have been in like eighth grade, so probably like 16, maybe
Uh-huh.
17. And yeah, his parents had heard like, the passion through the doors or whatever. And needless to say, I was not invited back. But they, that family, they were very conservative, like way more conservative than our, because his parents had an issue with I wore I wore a purple sweater. It was like a school sweater, It was just a purple sweater that you wear over, your Amish clothes. And apparently, the color purple was taboo in that community. Like they called it the color of kings or something. I
Mm.
remember Dad trying to explain why they thought that way, but I think even he thought they were being stupid. They just wanted something
Yeah.
to bitch about. you know.
Yeah. So, so one of the things we had covered before was that probably it was a little less, well, little bit easier, relatively speaking, for you to um, learn about homosexuality or explore that because you
Right,
went
right.
to a public school and you had educators and you had access to the libraries. So you had a lot more resources than the average Amish kid tends to have. And
That is true, and it's some Amish have limited internet for their businesses. We also talked about this, and obviously for school, if their parents allow it. But Amish really do need, and in Amish newspapers like the Budget, they advertise the plain smartphones, which I guess cell phones are still somewhat taboo depending on what church district or um, type of Amish church that you're in. But I think Amish need like just like a plain like like a website with like a whole bunch of resources for domestic abuse and sexual abuse and substance abuse and whatever else. I mean, just basic resources.
Exactly.
Because a lot of things like people take for granted, Amish really don't have those. And yeah, and there's a lot of websites out there kind of catering for uh plain people, but a lot of those sites have an agenda or they're trying to sell a product or something, and
Or
it
a
needs to be
religion. They're trying to.
yes, the ultimate product.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Whereas we Amish, especially the kids who are thinking about leaving or have just recently left or are still trying to transition to the outside, like we need a good source and a reliable source that educates us about the facts and isn't skewed towards a particular religious belief. And that's actually one of the things that I'm creating as part of the memoir is I'm creating, a directory, a list of resources. And we spoke about this the last time about how the gay community could be a great fit in terms of being this transition, this safe passage into the outside, because the gay community has created safe houses, like they've navigated, pioneered, these things in terms of creating community for themselves and being ostracized by their family members. And so when you had mentioned that about like that was how you navigated the outside, is you got plugged into the gay community. And so
right.
Very much so.
Definitely.
And speaking of gay resources for Amish in particular, you have a website that you run or are part of, or what's the website?
No, it's actually not my website per se. I'm just like an honorary founding father of the website. And it's www.lgbtamish.com. Also on Twitter and Facebook. Started by a gay ex-Amish guy named Tad Slaybaugh and his partner Jeffrey. And yeah, there's a small group of gay ex-Amish now on the internet that have found each other, and that's really wonderful.
Yeah, that's very, very.
I feel so bad for any Amish that just are trapped in the community that can't leave because of family repression, the church. I was definitely lucky in that I could leave. I mean, I've had people call the Amish a cult before, and I've always sort of kind of split hairs with that because you can always just freely leave the Amish. If you really want to go bad enough, they're not going to stop you and drag you back.
Well, that's not true. I mean,
I think that isn't true.
Cases.
I mean,
that's after me.
Yes, right. And that's sort of painting a picture in with a broad brush, because in some cases people really aren't that lucky and they will be dragged back whether they like it or not.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I want to get into your book. You wrote a book you're a poet, writer, poet. You released a book in 2011. What's the title of it? And can you tell me why you wrote, why you write? Why are you a poet?
The title of the book is called The Literary Party: Growing Up Gay and Amish in America. And it's a collection of poetry, a few essays, and a short story, kind of dealing with the Amish life, Rumspringa at the clubs, the Kalamazoo, the gay scene. It was published in 2011 and received a lot of good reviews. It was nominated a general nominee for the Lambda Literary Award.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, so and since then I've done a lot of other poetry anthologies and chapbooks, and one of my last ones that I've done, I guess, can you see that okay? It might be
Yes.
backwards. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Is that backwards?
no, that's perfect. Hold it still right there.
Okay.
Oh wow, Michigan Meditations. I love the
Yeah.
title. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Okay,
So I wanted to read one of the pieces from it, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
I thought you would like this one. It's called Riverside Meditation.
Okay.
I wakened to the sounds of government in action on a gorgeous summer morning. Police cars lined the paved path, winding through the mobile home park, following the river. Hazmat suits shuffle around. A meth dump site has been discovered strewn along the riverbank near the Indiana-Michigan border. I take my coffee from my rented room out to the porch and take it in. The cleanup is going slowly. The hazmat suits are cumbersome. Dogs in the park continuously bark. Several mornings later, a young Amish couple in courtship knew by and stopped to ask me directions. They kiss by the bridge and hold hands. Yellow caution flutters nearby.
I
So
love
yeah, I
I
still try and incorporate a few Amish things here and there. Not a lot of my recent writing has been all about the Amish per se. And when I first started writing, that's probably the last thing I wanted to write about was the Amish, because that's not what I was interested in. I was interested in going out to the gay community and the clubs and exploring the outside world. The last thing I wanted to write about was the Amish. Um, but yeah, I've come full circle with my poetry, and I've done a few short memoir, a few essays, and I wouldn't say that I wouldn't not write about them in the future, but there's a lot of things that I want to work on. So yeah.
yeah. You liked, like I saw you like my memoir page, and that
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
growing up gay and Amish, the literary party. I'm like, whoa, what's this? I gotta check this out. And that's how we met. Like
yeah, yes. Um, yeah, well, one of the great things after my book came out was finding out that it was chosen for a book reading club in Paris of all places,
wow.
and yeah, because my ancestors had left Switzerland and France to come to America, and so yeah, that was a sort of a random great thing, and just gay ex-Amish reaching out. And a few of them were Amish, not necessarily ex-Amish.
Mhm,
Um, but I'm not sure if what I mean. Some people reach out, they come out to you,
mhm.
and they end up leaving, and others don't.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they just sort of disappear quietly into the woodwork, and
And
kind of
yeah,
wonder.
you never know though what impact you have.
Yeah,
Like maybe you've planted
yeah.
a seed or a little bit of hope for them, and maybe someday they'll leave the church, or I don't know.
Well, so
So what do you see in terms of like um, problems within the Amish church? And there's tons of things, social issues that need to be addressed.
right.
But in terms of the gay issue, how do you see that? Do you see the Amish ever coming around and accepting their gay children, accepting gay marriage, or like, what's your views on this?
Yeah, I would like to say yes, that there's a rosy dawn in the future, because if the Mennonites can get it together, there's no reason that the Amish can't get it together. But for whatever reason, they seem to have dug their heels in and are firmly entrenched in the fundamentalist, we're not changing, deal with it. And so in the near future, I don't see any change whatsoever. In the future, maybe. and that'll probably depend on how much technology is allowed, because that's where the resources are, that's where the education is, and the support system. So
Okay, let me pause you right there. So
there's a lot of things in the air.
yeah, so what you foresee as any positive change towards accepting gays within the Amish church would be dependent upon how much more technology is introduced or accepted, allowed within the church. And by virtue of having, say, access to the internet, more and more church members, Amish church members, they would then have the opportunity to be exposed and educated about gay issues on the down low, but at least they have access to it. And that might be a way of eventually shifting the direction towards acceptance of.
That's the reality that gay Amishmen face. They have to get married. There's really no other option. And so then once they're married and they have the farm and they're living the life, they're not going, I mean, maybe they can repress their desires, but if they can't, they're gonna reach out through technology and find a guide, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think that happens probably more than a lot of